Bem-vindos ao Type Theory for All podcast. This is your host, Pedro Abreu, and today we are going to have a deep conversation with Talia Ringer. She was freshly hired as an assistant professor at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. She did her PhD at University of Washington with her thesis on proof repair. She's very active on Twitter, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're here because of that. In this episode, we talk about her transition from the PhD to being a professor, her work on diversity, her ADHD, and how it has affected her career so far. We are also going to touch on the delicate topic of sexism in academia. All that while I try very hard to not be a terrible host who can't even say my guest's last name. Before we jump into this episode, I'd like to thank Overblur for designing the amazing logo of this podcast. If you didn't notice, this logo is the denotation of NA as in all, which is my key goal of this podcast. That is to translate and talk about topics related to type theory in a more accessible manner. Overblur is run by a close friend of mine in Brazil, and his specialty is on designing logos, so he patiently sat down with me for many hours so that I could explain type theory to him so that he could make an idea come out of this. If you're interested in doing logo or some sort of design work, make sure to check his Instagram and Twitter at Overblur Studio. I'll leave the links in the description. Now let's get into it! Welcome everyone to one more episode of the Type Theory for All podcast. This is your host Pedro Abreu. Today we are going to talk a little bit with Talia. Oh my god, I just noticed that I don't know how to pronounce your surname. Is it Ringer or Ringer?
Ringer. It's
Ringer.
Cool. Yeah.
She is an assistant professor at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Welcome, Talia.
Thanks. Good to see you.
So, how about we start talking about how did you get into this world of proof engineering and doing proofs? Because if I remember correctly, you actually have an undergrad, you did your bachelor's on mathematics?
Yeah, my bachelor's was in like elliptic curve cryptology.
Oh,
Very,
wow.
very much on the math side of things. Um yeah, I mean I kind of used to joke that I did like some binary searching to find out like how theoretical I want to go. Because I started off with this like elliptic curve crypto work. Then I after undergrad I worked as a software engineer at Amazon for 3 years. Just like um yeah, hands-on software engineering. And then yeah, when I started off grad school, I was kind of exploring a bit. I did some work on user-driven access control, which is kind of like program analysis for access control in like mobile operating systems like Android. Um, and then some work on like test input generation with constraint solvers. Um, but yeah, in the background, I was taking a class on using these proof assistants. And I think like, I was frustrated by how hard things were, but they felt like they were hard in a really like a way that did not feel fundamental. Like we read this paper from the like 1970s, this like social processes paper, which is really critical of verification and says like, oh, this is never going to work, etc. Um, and they listed like a whole bunch of problems with verification. And I remember reading it and being like, these are all true, and like there's still a lot of these are still problems, but I don't feel like they should have to be. Like these
Mm-hmm.
all feel surmountable, and like my takeaway from reading this paper is like we should be working on these things. Like so I think I just got kind of obsessed, and I just could not kind of turn back after that.
So, did your university have any introduction to programming languages or Coq or Agda, something like that
In undergrad or in grad school?
in grad school? Because you said that
Yeah.
you started looking at those things in grad school, right?
Yeah, it was a yeah, I mean I did take programming languages classes in undergrad, but the proof
Mm-hmm.
assistant stuff was definitely in grad school at the beginning. Our like grad programming languages class at UW, we did that whole thing in Coq. Um, so yeah, it was an adventure.
Wow, wow, yeah. No, yeah. Here at Purdue, we also do grad program languages in college. It's super fun, right?
It
Just
is.
writing proofs and functional programming and reasoning about stuff. It's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really beautiful too. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's hard to see all the beautiful like theory underneath it when you're first learning it, I feel like. But I feel like the
Right,
more, yeah, the more I learn, it's like just the more beautiful it gets.
right. At the beginning, you feel like you're struggling against the tool, right? You're just like trying to
Yeah.
get things to compile and to go through. But as you get better, and as in any tool, you start to appreciate. Oh wow, there are a lot of intricate stuff that it can do for you automatically, right? I
Yeah.
totally see that. And also, yeah, doing proofs about your own programs, then that's so much more fundamental, as you said, right? Things are just so much better. Might feel so much better, at least. I don't know, for me.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you can get such strong guarantees about your program, and like really impactful. Like I think, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of this view that I grew up with before, not grew up with. I mean, I didn't start programming until college, but like when I started programming, like there was this view that like bugs are inevitable. All you can
Yeah,
do is
yeah.
like, test as well as you can, and then kind of pray. Uh, and it just feels to me like there are large classes of bugs that are not inevitable. Like you could literally rule them out. You just have to be able to specify them and then write these proofs, and like that's still hard, but I don't feel like it has to always be hard, and it's so powerful. I don't
Even if you
know.
don't go all
It's
the way
incredibly
to
cool.
writing the proof, just by having a robust enough type system, you already can rule out a lot of bugs, right?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna? Do you plan to give any programming languages class now that you are a professor?
Yeah, so I'm starting off with like, I don't know. So when you first start off, they tell you to teach a class that's like really close to your area of expertise, so like a grad seminar of some kind. Um, so next semester, I'm teaching a proof automation class, which
Oh,
I'm really
cool.
excited about. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Yeah,
What's your plan
um,
there?
it's pretty cool. It's like um, so it's a grad seminar, and it's like in kind of 2 week blocks, like a different kind of area of proof automation. So everything from like the intersection of proof assistance and constraint solvers to like usable automation to machine learning for proofs to like different languages for automation like program logics and like tactic languages, proof languages. So each of those in like 2 week blocks. Um, then like the first day of each week is like a deep dive into some particular paper in that area. And then the second day of each week is actually like jumping into the artifact, like the actual code associated with that paper. And so there will be like a collaborative like hacking session together, which I'm excited about. It kind of demystifies this automation.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, can I come over to Urbana-Champaign to take your class?
Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of people excited. I'm like, I wish I could, yeah, I wish I could just make everything open. I don't know how it works. Maybe one day.
you just started being a professor this semester, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? And did you have to give a class this semester? Like,
Um, well, I started a little bit late. Um, like because I graduated in June and I was supposed to start in August, I was like, I can't. Like, especially after the pandemic, I was so
yeah,
tired. I was like, there's just no way. I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
just go jump from one thing to the other. So I asked for a little extra time. So I started officially in October, which just means that like the first time I'm teaching is in January, but I don't use like a teaching like release. I can use that later. Um, and yeah, like tenure clock starts a bit later, so I don't have to feel too like stressed out right now. So
That-
yeah, the first class I'll be teaching is in January. um yeah.
Actually, I don't understand very well yet how this professorship works, like being assistant professor or tenure track or like applications and all of that. It seems so cryptic and hard to understand, and scary even for a PhD student that is interested in doing that. But you know, how does could you give us a brief summary how all of that works, the application process, or like what are the needs that you see for applying for becoming a professor in programming languages?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the application process, I don't know, it's interesting. So I was on the market in a really weird year. Like it was the pandemic had like just hit before that. And so there were a lot of like hiring freezes and that sort of thing. Um so like um yeah, the big thing there was just like a lot of the places where I would have like normally applied were just like not hiring at all or something like this. So it was a little scary. But I think yeah, I mean, so I just applied to like a really broad like array of places. I think, um, yeah, I mean, what's needed? I mean, you have your statements. There's like what like research statement, diversity statement, teaching statement, um, and you get letters. Some of them from people at your university. Hopefully, at least like one external collaboration where you can get a good letter from someone
That's the letter of
outside.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that all matters a lot. I mean the statements definitely matter a lot. But then there's also just like it's also they have all the universities will have these like invisible criteria that they won't like um and you can't know ahead of time whether they're going to tell you about them, how seriously they're going to take them, whether you meet them. Um, so in some sense, like the only thing you really can do is like apply super broadly and like put your best foot forward, like show how you think you're going to be good faculty, but like you can't optimize for all these secret constraints on the back end. You can't like really go for like one particular school or um, I don't know, that stuff is really hard. If you have constraints, you can communicate them if they're really like really important to you. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I had another thought here, but I forgot it.
What's the statement of diversity?
Oh, the diversity statement. Yeah, I mean, so typically for people who haven't done a lot of diversity work, this is often just sort of like your plans for like improving the state of like diversity and inclusion um, in the field. But um, for people who have done a lot of work, you could also talk about the things you've done. Um, for me, I had done a lot of work, so it was natural for me to talk about some of the programs that I'd started or participated in and how they kind of fit into my larger like vision of diversity.
So I know that you have been organizing the mentoring sessions, and I don't know, you are so active on Twitter and talking about all different things. Do you want to give us a brief idea of the? Let's start with what's the mentoring?
Yeah, the like the like yeah SIGPlan M, the long term mentoring program. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, I guess I started that like um maybe it's been almost a year and a half now, or I guess a little over a year. And it was kind of an impulsive thing, honestly, at first. Like it was yeah, like so I was co-chairing the like PLMW, the Programming Languages Mentoring Workshop at ICFP. Um yeah, and Stephanie was like I want you
Stephanie
to
Werish.
do, yeah, she was like, I
Okay.
want you to do something, some social event, like, or something. But, like, have complete freedom, like, do whatever you want, Dolly. I was like, okay. Um, and I thought hard and I was like, with the pandemic, I think the need for people to be connected to the community is like was stronger than ever. Like, people were very isolated. And I was thinking, like, also we have all these short term connection programs like PLMW where you meet these people and then they kind of disappear forever. Like it's unless you're one of the people who like really takes initiative and tries to like make this into a long term relationship of some kind, like you meet a mentor and then you'll never, often just never speak to your mentor again. um,
Yeah.
and that seemed like, not it seemed less than ideal. So I think I was thinking about like long-term programs, which I'd participated in a few of. I participated in some at Amazon as a software engineer. also as a mentor at UW for this like queer mentoring program. So I had, a couple programs as inspiration. Um, yeah, and I thought it'd be really cool if we could do something like that, within the programming languages community, and have it be cross institutional, so that, people get these like outside perspectives as well. Um, but for like a long sustained period of time. So yeah, it'll pair people up for like a year by default, mentors and mentees. Um, and it reaches right now everywhere from like undergrads through like senior faculty even at mentees, which
Oh
is kind
wow.
of cool. Yeah.
Wow.
um, and and people in industry, including like software engineers who want to come back and go to grad school or something like that,
Wow.
which is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I think like 30 something different countries. So it's been really good. I like, after we started it up, Alexandra Silva was like, wanted to make this into like an official committee through SIG Plan. So then we did, and like it's been great. I don't know. I just
Yeah,
really
no,
enjoying it.
that's absolutely awesome. Thanks for
Mhm.
organizing that. It's a really good program. I'm actually surprised that I feel that professors they have so little free time to participate in these things. Like it's kind of surprising that we can still make this work with.
Yeah, and there are also a lot of grad student mentors, which is useful, and like industry mentors too. Um, but I think people do see value a lot in like helping. And yeah, it's like not a huge time commitment
Hmm, hmm.
for people to mentor. Yeah, although I have been thinking more about like ways to reward mentors a bit more, like um because we did our first survey recently, like looking at how everyone is feeling about the program, um, and like mentees were like um, almost uniformly like benefiting very strongly, like very
Yeah.
happy with it, which is great. Um, Mentors were like, they still want to continue, but they were like, first of all, they didn't think that they were helping their mentees as much as their mentees thought they were being helped. um, yeah, so that was like, oh gosh, there's some kind of communication thing there, and like that's really important for like morale. Yeah, so I want to have some kind of official like thank you system where a mentee can, type in some thank you message and it sends off some nice like card, or and maybe like a small gift from a sponsor or something to a mentor. So yeah, I've been looking into that.
Your mind just doesn't stop having ideas, huh? It's always journeying.
Yeah, I just need more time.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So what other kinds of diversity stuff have you worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the queer mentoring program that I did um, in in grad school, and I think that was one of the things that was really, really special. I think a lot of the mentoring I'd done before that had been like, helping people decide between like, do I go to this big tech company or this big tech company, or like, what kinds of like research problems should I work on and stuff like that. And the queer mentoring program, I think, I realized just how much of a difference a mentor can make in someone's life. Like it can be like a life or death kind of thing. Um, and I think that was part of why I saw, when I was started doing Sigplan M, making non-technical mentorship also a part of this, because a lot of people do really want like like an LGBT mentor in the community or something like this, and it's huge. I guess that's part of it. I don't know. I also started like it's like a care committee uh at UW, um, which was just a way of having like a default support network for people during like difficult times, for grad students. So we had like, I think our most successful program was like care baskets, where anyone in any grad student, or I guess anyone at UW in CSE could like request a care basket for someone, and then we would put it together and send it to them. I think this is still going on
Oh my
now that
god,
I've left, and
that is awesome.
it's great. Yeah, I think it was nice just for improving like a sense of community and
Hmm.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are a couple things. I don't know. There's a lot of invisible work, which I think it's hard stuff to like. I can't talk about it, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's some of the more important stuff. So I hope we find ways of like making that more visible sometime.
Do you think now that you are a professor, do you think your status has changed somehow?
Yeah, I do think so.
Huh.
It's weird. Yeah. Just like status and like how I'm viewed and stuff or
Yeah, yeah. In
yeah.
general, both in academia and in your daily life, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think people take me more seriously by default.
Really? Well, I mean, good.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, but sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's like I'll throw in some like BS opinion that I have about like machine learning or
Right.
like natural language processing on
Yeah.
the internet, and people are like, "Oh wow, this person thinks this thing." I'm like, "No, I'm not an expert in this. I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about." Because like you're just a computer science professor to most
Right.
people, but it's like I'm still learning. I have like 1 year, less than 1 year of machine learning experience. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I don't know, that stuff is weird. Um, yeah, yeah. Although sometimes I don't know. Yeah, the increase in status. I think also like you notice in how students will treat you by default. Like I met you before,
Yeah.
like when I was still a student. So like you just treat me as if like like we just like we know each other. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, but when I meet people who never knew me, like until I started as faculty, sometimes they seem like more nervous to talk to me the
Mm-hmm.
first time.
Mm-hmm.
like, um, so it's been a lot of like, yeah, I don't know. I put so much effort into making my office um signal that I'm a person that people can talk to,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and just to make it like a little, yeah, a
It
little
looks great.
easier. Thanks.
How do you feel the difference between being a professor woman or being a professor man? Do you think there are differences there?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about the other day. I think like there's a part of me that kind of hoped, maybe it was really foolish, but it like kind of hoped that like the sexism would go away at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's always been some kind of sexism throughout like my whole career. Um in undergrad it was like unwarranted attention from some faculty that I just didn't want, and I would be very clear that I didn't want it. In As a software engineer at Amazon, it was like people kind of ignoring my opinions and assuming I didn't know anything technical by default. Um, and then, in grad school, there's a lot of like systemic issues. There were some things with like, um, one time I got asked if I was like someone's wife when I like walked into an office.
Wow.
It was a research, someone I was working with on research, and like, is that your wife? I'm
Wow.
like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, just kind of stuff like that for a while. But then, I thought like, yeah, I had hoped in some way, and sometimes more serious things like that. There was like an internet harasser that just seemed to mostly target like
Oh my
women.
god. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. What happened to you? I'm so sorry. Do
uh,
you wanna give a
then
brief explanation to the listener what happened?
I don't know. It's a lot. It was just, yeah, it was just a ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where to start with that. Um, yeah, it's
Okay,
okay.
so here's here's
But
here's here's a question then. What do you think we as well, particularly me as a man, for example, what can we do to help change that?
yeah, I don't know. It's really, so it's at every level. So I guess like as faculty, the biggest thing I see is mostly that there are a lot of like more senior men like with whom I'd interacted before in the community, um, and had very pleasant interactions with as a student. But suddenly as faculty, it's like I don't know if I have enough power and status that they like don't hold back on things that like might have sexist roots or something. Um,
I'm not
or
following, sorry.
um, I think most of what I've encountered as faculty is new and different. So I feel like what's needed at every level is a little bit different. Yeah, and I'm just not sure where to start. Like I feel like you'd have to pick a particular problem.
There's so many,
Um,
right?
Yeah. So like for things like harassment and so on, like Sigplan Cares I think is fantastic and I think gets used for that sort of thing. Like having people you can talk to by default when you go through something like that. And actually maybe even as faculty, like like going through some of this recently, I spoke to a friend who like is faculty and is also on cares, um, just because I knew it was safe. um, yeah, and cares also like even um, like I was helping a student navigate a situation, um, and that put a lot of it put me through a lot of feelings myself that I wasn't sure how to deal with. Um, and this is kind of the like invisible labor I was talking about, which also like on which is overwhelmingly is something that like women and like people of color and so on like all take on. Um, and even then, to deal with the sort of emotional side of things, I spoke to someone who's also on cares and asked, like how do you deal with this emotional labor? Like how do you process it? And I got some really helpful answers. So yeah, I think cares has been incredibly helpful for me. Um, yeah, and I think a lot of the invisible labor of dealing with these things like is already happening. So I think maybe recognizing it and
Yes.
rewarding it in some way is really important just for like retention,
And
and
also
for building like
punishment, maybe in some sense, right? I'm sure there are things that Sigplan and ACM could do about it
yeah,
for.
you have to be careful because if you act without people's consent you can like cause like retaliation. So I think always you want to start by like prioritizing the people who are harmed.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do beyond that. Some of these things are so small and they just
Hmm.
eat away at you like
Yes.
slowly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not things where it's like you want this person to get punished. It's like you have to have a conversation with this person
Yeah.
and explain why they said something that was out of line. Um, but then when you have those conversations every day, you get really tired.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
um, and that's why I think like the recognizing invisible labor is really huge.
That's actually the main reason why I would like to talk about this publicly is because I feel this is much of the issue are microaggressions, right? And
Yeah.
things that go very deep into how the society works, and many people are not even aware that this happens. Is just how they've been taught, and like thought how to they see people acting this way and they think it's normal, right? But it's not. It's time to for us to recognize this and start changing. So talking about it, in my point of view, is a very big first step.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some of the things I've seen that are just pervasive and hard to get past are um like erasure. Um so like not recognizing an idea that like a woman has given to you or something,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why I'm like over the top annoying about people crediting each other for things, and people, yeah, I don't know. Like, but there's a root for it. It's like I've experienced that and it's
Hmm.
upsetting and I want to make sure that I can always trace like who has told me what and make sure that they're credited appropriately. um yeah, and then like things like um uh kind of like people centering themselves. If you bring up something like sexist that happens, I think often there's a lot of like, you're only doing this because I'm a man, like what about me? I've also gone through hard things.
Oh
And it's like
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like okay. We can talk about those things another time though. um or a lot of tokenization, like oh, but I know some women who didn't go through these things, and um it's like that's true, but people have different experiences, and yeah, I don't know,
Such a big problem.
yeah, there's a lot. It's
Well,
hard to
yeah.
know where to start.
Thank you for being so open about it.
Yeah.
Let's change gears a little bit, talk of some stuff that is a little more cheerful maybe. um what are your thoughts on postdoc?
Postdocs. Interesting. Like in general, like as a concept, or
Yeah. What made you decide to not go through a postdoc?
oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, part of it is unfortunately still kind of linked to the sexism conversation, which is
Okay.
that like there's a lot of like moving around. And I think the constraints on moving around on relationships are a lot worse for women because there's more of a norm of following men around for their jobs. But I've had like three relationships end because of moving for jobs. So I want to make sure that like I just wanted stability. Like I was like, please just give me some stability so I can like go on with that part of my life. But I also just felt ready. Like um, I kind of knew what I wanted, and it seemed like if I could get a job that I liked as faculty, then I was just ready for it. I might as well just start. Um, yeah, I think they can be really useful. Um, they can give you some expertise, like um, you know, outside of the area where you've been focusing. There might be a really nice collaboration opportunity. A lot of people will do like a visiting year in industry, um, which I'm now doing like after the fact. So, well, I guess I'm doing a summer, but yeah, um, and that can be really cool. Um, there's like a chance to strengthen your application a bit. There's a chance to like wait out recessions a little bit. So I think a lot of people do postdocs during recession years, like especially
Yeah.
these last couple of years. So yeah, I think there are a lot of good reasons that people do them. I think I was like, I just wanted to go on and start.
Oh yeah, another big reason is to grow your collaboration network, right? Like meet
Yeah, that's
more
true.
people so that you can work with and whatnot. But you already
Yeah,
have so many collaborators that
yeah. I feel like limiting my collaborations has been a harder problem for me recently.
really.
I think because I just talk a lot, and like when you talk a lot, people like just get to know you for that, and then um, and I'm always just shooting out random thoughts, and then yeah, there are a lot of people who want to work with me, and it's great. Like I love it. Um, I always feel bad when I'm like, that also sounds fun, but I already have 5 projects, so I don't think I can do a sixth right now. uh,
Do you plan to stay in touch with your PhD advisor and are you still collaborating with him?
yeah, yeah, I have like I guess one collaboration that's with my advisor and some students at UW. Um, yeah, yeah, because we had a grant together, so it was kind of a natural continuation of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm asking this because I've seen before that when hiring a professor, one of the big things that the committee is going to look at is if you have enough collaborators out of your PhD advisor, right? So I was curious how would that go?
Yeah, I don't know so much if it's well, I think there are a couple things that play there. There's like having external letters and stuff like that. A lot of that is just because your advisor like is uh is biased and has a conflict of interest, and like they want you to succeed not just for you but also
For
because
them.
it's good for them, right? um, and so like they want having external collaborators gives you someone whose success is not tied to your success, that they can like get some thoughts about you from. And then I think there's also like you want to be able to distinguish yourself from your advisor in some ways. And one way is to have a network of external collaborators. One way is to have already worked on something that, wasn't your advisor's like area of expertise. Um, one way is to have a really strong vision in an area that isn't, what your advisor's doing. There are a lot of different ways that you can distinguish yourself. So um, I don't know. I think it's important to do that in some ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean like I think nowadays a lot of people will continue doing some collaborations with a PhD advisor, especially if there's something like a grant or yeah.
How do you compare being a PhD student and being a professor now?
That's interesting. It's different in a lot of ways. I like it a lot more being faculty, honestly.
Right.
so far. Yeah, the big thing is that like I felt like um I think for the way my personality works, I really like to be like working on a whole bunch of things at once. Um and um it's really fun for me to be able to spend some time on like a type theory project and spend some time on like a machine learning project in the same week. And I just never was really able to do that um as a PhD student, especially at the end, because you're very focused on your thesis work. And type theory in particular is very tiring. I feel like it's
Yeah.
fun, like I
Yeah.
love it, but yeah, like my brain is just fried
Yes.
at the end of the
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have another thing where like if I'm doing all this hardcore type theory and like I'm just exhausted, I can just open up some Python, like hack in it, like train a model and see what happens. It's like okay. So
I heard
yeah,
you're
it's
having a really good time on using Python.
I don't like the Python part, but I do like I think some of the machine learning stuff is fun in its own way. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it's still machine learning for proofs, but it's fun because the results are so like you can get results so quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't know. So that's been cool. And then like having students is really fun. Um,
You already have students?
yeah, it was a little weird. It's like we have a um I don't know, UIUC like hires some students on like TA ships before they have like a good advisor fit. Um
Hmm.
and so yeah, there were a couple of students who were just really good fit, so we just started working together and like um yeah, it's been cool. Uh
So here at Purdue, professors that are starting, they get something called tenure package, where they get some money to fund some students at their first few years. Do you get that?
yeah, you get like a startup package. Yeah, it's like um yeah, it's just some sum of money to pay students and fund other things like equipment, conference travel, and so on, and your summer salary in your first few years. Um, the assumption is like before you have grants, um, yeah, but you also then apply for grants, which just kind of extends that money
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can do more of that.
And then you have the first 5 to 7 years. You have to plan for getting tenured. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I know that much about it yet. Um, I
Just
think I think we have a meeting tomorrow that's all the assistant professors where they talk about like promotion criteria and stuff.
okay.
I gather that it's like um, it's mostly research focused, but but they also care about teaching, service, and they're adding diversity here, which is cool. Uh, and like you have some giant like internal CV, I guess, where you put in like all the things you've done.
Wow.
And then there's a big letter process, and it's super weird. There's like some letters you ask for, and then some letters that come, I think, like unsolicited. Like they just
Wow.
ask for letters about you,
Wow.
which I find scary. Like
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but it seems to mostly be okay. I don't know. I thought I would be really stressed about this when I got here. Like it seemed like one of the big stressors. Um, and then I think I spent so much time in grad school like pushing for this job that I want that now I feel like um, if I have to give up something fundamental about myself or like work way harder or way differently than I'd like to, just to keep the job, then maybe I'd rather be like running the mentoring program full time or something.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So there are some things I won't give up. Like people say not to spend too much time on service. I'm like I'm gonna spend the time I want on service because I think it's good for the community and I enjoy it. And if people decide that they don't want me because I spend too much time on service, then I will go do something else. I don't know.
that
Yeah.
that is a great vision.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can make it work. I think people have gotten more understanding of like community impacts, and the systems have started to reward this a bit more, and like hopefully that continues. But I'm not gonna let it worry me too much for now.
Do you like Urbana so far?
Yeah, I mean, like It's not Seattle. I don't know. I definitely miss Seattle. Yeah, I joked to someone once that like the worst part of going to grad school at UW is that it's hard to get a job at UW after going to grad school at UW. It was like I miss Seattle a lot. But no, I mean I like Champaign. It's like it's a very quiet place. But there's still like everything that I could need pretty much. Like there are ways to build communities. Like I'm in a lesbian and feminist choir, for example. And so like yeah, there are like really specific things like that, and it's great. And like the job is fantastic. The university is great. Like I've been really happy here so far. So
Yeah, you made it. Congratulations. It's awesome. I hope to be there someday. There, I mean, being a professor and all of that. You also contribute with the industry. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I guess the collaboration with industry, that's like a so this is happening in the summer, like starting in May. The upcoming collaboration with industry. I will be a 50% faculty visitor at Google.
Wow.
um, and yeah, it's cool. It's a way that they have to like make it easy to collaborate with people there. And I met my collaborator like on Twitter, strangely. Yeah. So like we would sometimes get into these, they're like arguments, but they're like good arguments. I don't know how to explain
Right. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like we would argue so much about research because we had different views on things, but they were like different and very complementary views, and they would always converge towards some really good idea like very quickly. So I was like, this is cool. I really want to like sit down and work with this person. So eventually when I realized that this kind of program was a thing, like I just, put together a proposal with him over the course of like a couple hours because I didn't know that we needed a proposal, and neither did he. But we hacked it together in a couple hours. It was great. And yeah, like I will be visiting there next summer, and I'm excited. Like it's going to be a project that's at the intersection of it's at the intersection of machine learning, proof repair, and like automatic formalization. So like going from natural language, for example, theorems to formal theorems automatically in like a proof assistant, like translation
That's really
from
cool.
yeah. So it's at this intersection of all three of these things. Um, and he's like a really good like deep learning expert. It's Christian Seghetti. uh I, I don't know, like it's cool because I don't really have that much experience there. I really feel like it's an important time for me to get a little better at that stuff because I think it's one tool really in this toolbox for proof automation, and it's a silly tool to like ignore because it seems to be growing in importance if anything. So like I want to make sure that I, gain some expertise there, and then I can contribute the, proof repair expertise. And I think together we'll end up with something really cool. So I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how does this 50-50 work? Like, is it 6 months, 6 months?
So it's a summer appointment.
Oh, I
50
see.
50% really just means like I'm expected to spend like half my time on the Google stuff this summer. Um, and I'll be in Mountain View, like on campus. Um, but then I'm still, 50% of the time, like I have student projects and so on over the
Right,
summer, which
right,
I'll still
right.
be advising. Yeah.
That's really, really, really interesting that those sort of collaborations go on, because
Yeah.
that sort of collaboration that I've seen before was when professor goes in sabbatical, so they take a year off and then they go to work a little bit in the industry and then they come back later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of like just before starting a faculty job, a lot of people would go for like a year. Um, and do the same kind of thing that I'm doing. But yeah, you can actually do it after starting a little bit. And I think this is really common in other areas like machine learning, where like industry collaboration is like very important for a lot of different kinds of work that you might want to do. Um, but yeah, it's cool. I'm also excited to just like share proof assistance with everyone there. I Yeah, I've offered Jeff Dean like a crash course in proof assistance, which he
Oh
has
my
expressed
god.
interest in, and that would be the most fun thing ever to teach and like just a fun person to teach. So
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing.
we'll see. Yeah, pretty cool.
Do you think that your ADHD have somehow been on your way to do research?
Like a barrier or like
Yes.
a I see. Okay, yeah. Well, this is interesting. So it's really hard for me to separate my ADHD from like how I think in general. Um, but from what I gather, I think it has been both a barrier and a huge like booster. like like some ways it's really good. Uh you know, I get a couple of pages into a research paper or like a couple of slides into a talk, and like suddenly I just have all these ideas because like my brain is just spinning off onto all the cool things I could do, and then like I get really obsessed with them, and I sometimes will pursue them without, any fear of consequences. um and that's like so-called impulsivity, and like it's weird because impulsivity is one of those things where you could think of it as like, like bad, um because I think societally it's often bad, but like, it could also be it's like how I, started a mentoring program without worrying about what would be involved, and it's how I ended up doing research where people are sometimes, scared of pursuing like certain topics. Um and I think a little bit of that is like it can be really good in research, like a little bit of that, fearlessness, that impulsivity, the rapid fire ideas. I think yeah, where it mostly gets in the way is um uh like I guess ADHD like really amplifies the effect of like something you like how easy it is to do the thing. So like for every person ever, if you're interested in something, it's easier to do the thing than if you're not interested in it. I think with ADHD, it's like that, but like on like just like orders of magnitude, like more intense than that. So like, if I'm really interested in something, like I really like writing. So if I write a paper, sometimes I will sit down and just lose like 12 hours of my life, like just writing and writing because like I just have no idea what else is going on. But that means I'll often neglect the things that I need to do, but I don't want to do. um, that might be like checking email. Like email has just been just like hell. Have so much work going into figuring out how to make email work for
Hmm.
me. Um, it might be like just really like administrative stuff, like just
Yeah.
boring administrative
Yeah.
stuff, like getting my health insurance set up,
Yeah.
and like uh just managing the rest of my life, which will like sometimes I get too interested in my work and then the rest of my life just kind of like um,
ADHD is often also associated with procrastination. You don't get
yeah,
that?
I think it's procrastination again, mostly for the things where you're not immediately interested in them. So Yeah, I mean, there's some things I procrastinated on. I don't know if it shows up as much in my work, but like booking doctor's appointments. Sometimes I'll procrastinate for an entire year. Like, I should book this appointment next week, and I just drag it, and it just goes on for a
Yeah.
whole year. Um,
I do that
yeah.
with dentists.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, or like reading my mail, like just like my like actual physical mail, just
Right.
like pile up in a corner of my room. Like I don't want to look at this. This is stressful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I think at work I've been lucky like to be able to build my life around things that I'm excited about, which is why it doesn't show up as much.
Right. That's
Where
amazing.
it shows up at work, I think, is with like emotion regulation. That's a
Hmm.
thing which
What do you mean?
people don't. Oh yeah, yeah. People don't know about this as much, I guess. But like, um, one thing with ADHD is like I always think of it as like a if you had a process manager in your brain that like controls the things that you're paying attention to, the things that
Right.
you're doing. It's kind of like having a process manager that's like out of control. So like sometimes it will just spin off on one process, and that can be like writing a paper again. It can also be like fixating on a feeling. Um, so a place this comes up a lot with ADHD is like rejection from like people you care about. So if someone says something really critical, like if I get a review where, a reviewer says something kind of hurtful, it's like spinning out into like these feelings of despair.
Wow.
And it's like overwhelming. It's like
Hmm.
not it's not, I mean, everyone gets sad, I think, with like bad review, but it's like just these really intense feelings. Um and they pass fairly quickly, but it's so intense that you often can't really like control how you react easily. Um, and so you might like cry in front of people or like, um, you might get really defensive, um, or talk about how everything in review is broken or, you know, um, y-
There are many broken things in academia that we definitely have to think about for
it's
our
true.
generation of researchers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have advice for other students that have ADHD?
Hmm. It's interesting. Where do I even start? I mean, I feel like so for the emotion stuff, I think the emotion stuff is just not recognized enough, and it's like really, really big and can impact like your relationships with your advisors or your students or um, other researchers or how people perceive you um, in the rest of the community. Um, and like for that, I think um, getting familiar with the emotional impacts is really important. And setting good like communication norms with the people who are working closely with you, if you're willing to be open about it, I think also really helps. Um, Accommodations are useful. Um, like if you're comfortable disclosing, um, and it is like Americans with Disability Act in the U.S., like it totally qualifies. So yeah. I mean, medication has always helped me. Like that, I started when I was like 19, um, and I couldn't follow like conversations with like three or more people until I started taking medication. So that definitely helps me a lot. Um, yeah, there's also we have a Slack, which is cool. I started a neurodivergent in computer science Slack, which is a bunch of people like mostly like ADHD and like autism, um, who are just computer scientists who just we just talk to each other, we share strategies and stories, and you know like rant about all the, the things that are disproportionately hard. Like, oh gosh, reimbursements. That's one that I forgot about. That's like hell with ADHD. Just no, like every people with ADHD I've spoken to would sometimes rather lose thousands of dollars than like send back receipts to an admin because it's just the hardest thing in the world. It's like
Yeah.
you can literally like quantify like how much money this is worth to you, and you're like thousands. This is difficult.
Uh,
Yeah.
this reminds me that I still have to do the one for Uppsala.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Godspeed.
it's an ongoing process.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
What about for students, for PhD students in general? What's your advice for doing a successful PhD,
Oh,
if
man.
any?
I don't even know where to start with that. I feel like it's so different depending on your experiences. And there's also like a survivorship bias that I worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Any advice for a successful PhD?
My advice would
Gosh,
be just survive.
survive. That's fair.
It's a good place to start, huh?
I feel like I spent a lot of time worrying about fitting into everyone else's image of what a successful researcher
Yeah.
was. And I think I should have spent less time worrying about that. I don't think it actually changed my actions, but it definitely made me feel a lot worse. um, and like, you know, it's like you're still an individual. And when you go on the market, you are an individual.
Yeah.
Um, and like, you know, any way that you stand out is going to be interesting. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like having the most publications. It can be, other things that you do for the community. It can be writing a survey paper like I did, or starting a mentoring program, or like, there are just like yeah, one person I know who went on the job market said that like the fact that they had a lot of successful tools that people used really helped them because people who were interviewing them had like used their tools before.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are other ways to stand out, and I think yeah, I would worry less about fitting into what everyone else thinks is the successful researcher and more about doing it your way.
Yeah.
Now with that said, there's like a huge survivorship bias there because I did it my way and I got the job I wanted, but like maybe I'm sure there's an effect there where like there are
No,
probably limits to that statement.
I definitely see that. I definitely see that because the more you can be yourself, the more you show that you can be a leader, that you can think on your own, and that you can, you know, be relevant in some sense.
Yeah, and I think a lot of getting a job comes down to like having a personal brand and
Okay.
like
Don't tell anyone, but that's one of the ideas of the podcast.
cool.
Well, I think I might have went through everything I wanted. I think there is one last question that you said that one of the things that definitely helped you on your application was the survey you did, QED at large. How did that come about? How did you meet your collaborators, and what was the idea you had there? Why did
Oh
you make
yeah.
it?
Yeah, so that actually, like, I think that was mostly driven at the beginning by Zach Tatlock, who's one of the authors of the paper. He's a professor at UW, and Zach is one of these people who just has what I would call contagious enthusiasm. Like, um, he can just make up an idea and say it to you, and you're like, "Yes, I want to do that," and which is a cool skill to have. But yeah, at some point, like Zach was like, um, you know, we were just meeting about something else, and he's like, it'd be really cool if we did a survey paper on proof engineering, and I was like, yeah, that would be cool. um, and then I'm very much like a doer, which is a really good pair, I think, with someone like Zach who has the like
Right.
contagious enthusiasm. Because like if someone says we should do that thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's a cool thing, then I just go off and do it. And so like I was like, okay, let's do the thing now. So we kind of put together a team, and it was a really good team of people. And we wrote this survey. It took a really long time. A lot of it was kind of going on in the background while their research was happening. And it took a lot of conversations, like interviews with people in the community, like during which I learned so much. Um, so yeah, it was really fun. Definitely very different, not a traditional move, but I think it was cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad that you make it.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Okay, so last question: what's your favorite paper in PL?
In all of PL,
All of PL, all the best paper you've ever read, and made you, I don't know, maybe made you change how you inherently think about something, or made you feel really.
yeah, there was what was it? There's this paper. So, okay, it's going to be a weird answer because it's not so much because of the paper itself, um, so much as like how I view research. I forget what the paper is, but there's this paper about like the typed intermediate language, I think. Um, like I don't know if
Oh
you say
yes, I've
TLL
seen
or TIL
that.
or whatever. Um, So this had like a some kind of test of time award, right? Um, at Popple. Uh, gosh, I'll have to look this up later to make sure I'm not saying something ridiculous. But one thing I remember about this paper is that like the first time I read it, um, there's this paper, and then there's like a retrospective. I forget if it was like 10 or 15 years later, like when they had this like tested time award. Um, and the paper had this list of contributions, and the contributions that they guessed were nothing at all related to the contribution like 10 years later. And it made me feel so good for some reason because I was so nervous that like I had to be able to see, you know, exactly how like every single paper I wrote was going to fit into the world when I wrote these contributions and so on. And it made me like realize that this so much of this is like just up to forces of chaos,
It
and like
is.
you just put a paper into the world, you just put an idea out there because you think it's a good idea, and maybe someone picks it up, maybe they don't, maybe they pick up like something really small in there that you didn't think was a big deal, and maybe it's a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just made me feel better for some reason because it like I didn't feel like I always had to predict the exact future. It's just like just put a lot of good stuff out there, and like um maybe something really cool will happen.
Isn't it frightening at the same time because you don't know what kind of harm it can cause as well, right? In a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to be thinking about, yeah, but it's true. Yeah, if you can't predict all the good uses of things, for
Yeah.
sure you can't predict all the evil uses of
Yeah, yeah.
things. Um,
But that's the thing. Like, it's impossible. It's impossible to know what, like, science is kind of neutral in a sense, right? Like, it's just ideas.
yeah, I mean, it's only as neutral as the people doing it. So
Hmm.
we have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we're bringing in,
Very
people
good
with
point.
diverse backgrounds and perspectives, um, and always thinking critically about the impacts of our work. But
Yeah.
it is hard. There's not like an easy answer to like to ethics in general. So
For sure.
yeah.
Okay, last question now. Unless
This is the third
yeah, I just
last
remembered. I
question.
just remember one last question. So, any advice for someone who wants more visibility on Twitter?
Oh gosh. Um yeah, I mean, if you make a couple influential friends, this makes a big difference. Um like I think the biggest gains in following that I had were from when I had a friend who like retweeted me who has like, you know, like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of
Right.
followers or whatever. So I feel like yeah, and I actually like at this level you know, of influence, which is like eight or 9,000 followers. So I already will get people messaging me like, "Can you retweet this thing that I said?" And unless it's a totally unreasonable request, I'll usually say yes because it's like it's a way to help someone get more
And it doesn't cost you
visibility.
anything.
So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So I think it's okay not to be afraid to ask for those kinds of things.
Oh my god, I think you're gonna get so many requests now if you put that on there. Are you sure you want that?
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, it's using the visibility for good, as long as they're reasonable requests.
That's a very good point, important point.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at some point I really liked my Twitter, but somehow at some point it started downrating really fast on being like just a bunch of discussions that I don't enjoy anymore. I feel less and less motivated to use it nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. You have
Social
to
media is
really,
hard. I feel in general.
yeah, for sure.
Well,
Cool.
I think that's it then. Is there anything else that we didn't have the chance to talk about that would like to bring some visibility?
I think that's it. Yeah, it's been good. It's
All
good to
right.
see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it. Talia is just an amazing person, so full of ideas. It was an amazing opportunity for me to catch up. If you guys have suggestions on what we can do to help reduce sexism in academia, and more particularly in PL, leave us a comment in our website, www.typetheoryforall.com, or on Twitter, and just make sure to add us at TT4All. If you like this episode, make sure to check the other 12 we have before. And I think that's it for today. I hope to see you guys next time.